Half an hour has passed since Ash accepted Drake's invitation to battle, and as the young man emerges from the Pokémon Center, a newly received Pokéball in his hand, the Elite Four member nods approvingly before beckoning Ash and Brock to follow him to his ship. The vessel in question is a massive galley with several thick masts and a deck more than large enough to serve as a battlefield. Drake also introduces the boys to his crew, with them getting to know his first mate Fitzwilliam in particular, as well as hearing stories about how they have all sailed around the world together and the deep trust they all have in Drake's leadership. Though Ash finds all this fascinating, he is still primarily motivated by his desire to battle, and seeing this, Drake lays out the rules for their match. 3 1v1 battles, with the winner being decided by whoever can win 2 out of 3. Ash has no objection to this, and so with no further delay, Drake chooses his first Pokemon, Shelgon. Pulling out his Pokédex, Ash scans the little dragon type with interest. Then upon learning that it is slow with highly restricted movements, he brings out Grovyle, telling the grass type to use its speed to net them a quick victory. Just as eager as its trainer to make a good impression against a member of the Elite Four, Grovyle takes off at top speed, opening first with a quick attack which slams directly into Shogun's face, before pivoting into a pound. Using the momentum of this attack, the grass gecko springs backwards, landing on the main mast of the ship and using its new vantage point to rain down bullet seeds. However, even now Grovyle isn't done, as by kicking off with its powerful legs, it is able to launch back down and hit Shogun with another quick attack pound combo, before backflipping to a standing position and firing another round of bullet seeds, this time at point blank range. This 6-move combo all in the span of a matter of seconds is a sight to behold, especially when Shogun is yet to move a muscle. Smiling broadly, Brock praises that Ash and Grovyle really are at the top of their game today, but with a gruff grunt, Drake comments that while this is all well and good, there is a danger to being on top. Specifically when one falls from such lofty heights, the landing tends to be all the harder. Ash isn't sure what the old man means by this, but he isn't left to speculate long, as before he can give another command, Drake orders a Dragon Breath. While Shogun itself is a slow and cumbersome Pokemon, the same cannot be said of its attack, with a beam of draconic energy shooting out at such speed that Grovyle cannot even react before it's caught in the blast and sent slamming backwards into one of the masts. The force of this attack is unlike anything Ash has ever experienced before, and as the Dragon Breath ends, Grovyle collapses onto the deck, its eyes having become spirals. Ash is speechless at this prompt defeat, but in a hearty tone, Drake tells him not to get discouraged, saying that many a challenger has underestimated his Shogun. What matters now is that the boy learns from this and doesn't take him lightly again. Nodding resolutely, Ash promises that he won't make the same mistake twice. Then when Drake recalls Shogun in favor of his Altaria, Ash proves just how seriously he is taking this battle by calling on Pikachu. Leaping down from his trainer's shoulder, the electric rodent allows sparks to crackle on his cheeks as he stares down Altaria. Then when the call to begin is given, he leaps into action. Like last time, Ash takes the first move, though unlike before, he doesn't showboat with a flurry of attacks, instead telling Pikachu to use one really powerful thunder in the hope of knocking the Cloudbird out of the sky. Channeling his power, the electric rodent lets loose a massive bolt of lightning, which strikes Altaria head-on, though unfortunately for Ash and Pikachu, the avian is able to shake this off and continue its flight. Giving Ash a searching look, Drake acknowledges that this was a clever strategy using Altaria's obvious flying type to try and take it out with a super effective move, though we should know that it is also part dragon type, meaning that electric moves only do neutral damage to Altaria. Recognizing what a problem this is, and not for the first time wishing Pikachu had a wider range of move types, Ash has his starter use its speed to retreat up the mizzenmast. A wise decision, as Drake as Altaria try to one-shot the rodent with Takedown. Even with his vaunted maneuverability, Pikachu only narrowly manages to avoid this hit, with the same being true of the follow-up which forces the electric type to climb even higher. Unbeknownst to Ash, this is Drake's true plan, with him having Altaria drive Pikachu all the way to the top of the mast until finally the mouse Pokemon has nowhere to go. It is only now that Drake reveals that Altaria knows Aerial Ace, and with the move's unerring accuracy, there is nothing Ash can do to keep his partner from taking the hit. With a pained squeal, Pikachu is sent flying into the air, but thanks to Ash's resourcefulness, the little yellow Pokemon isn't fated to become a pancake, as on his trainer's command, he uses Quick Attack to grab onto one of the smaller yard arms. This is still a precarious position, however, as Pikachu is forced to cling on for dear life and pull himself up, all the while Altaria comes around for another pass, looking to finish the job. Zeroing in on the rodent, the Cloudbird once more uses Aerial Ace. In an act of desperation, Ash's Pikachu launch himself into the air once more, narrowly avoiding yet another attack. And it is a good thing he does, as when Altaria collides with the yard arm, it is shattered into toothpicks, sending a terrified chill down both Ash and Pikachu's spines, as they imagine what would have happened had Pikachu been on the receiving end of that blow. However, now is not the time to think of such things, as trainer and Pokemon need to focus on making a comeback. The first step to this is getting in a position where they can launch a counterattack. A simple enough prospect, as with a bit of aerial maneuvering, Pikachu is able to land on Altaria's back. This is arguably the safest place to be, as it puts the electric type out of harm's way, though the same cannot be said for the Cloudbird, as with a cry, Pikachu unleashes a full-force point-blank thunder. Even without a type disadvantage, that much raw electricity coursing through its body is enough to make Altaria shriek in pain, with it blindly flailing in midair in an attempt to dislodge Pikachu. Unfortunately for it, the electric rodent is digging his heels in, both figuratively and literally as he attempts to hold on, all the while continuing to assail his foe with more and more thunder attacks. In light of such painful and disorientating circumstances, it hardly comes as a surprise when a moment later, Altaria crashes into another yardarm, hurting itself, but finally throwing off Pikachu. With a thump, the electric rodent hits the mast, and as Altaria rights itself in midair, both Pokemon know the next move could very well decide the battle. Recognizing this as well, Ash and Drake each give their orders: quick attack for Pikachu, and takedown for Altaria. As one, the pair of combatants hurl themselves at each other, colliding with enough force to create a shockwave, then without a sound, fall out of the sky in tandem. Having leapt off the mast to make this attack, Pikachu is close enough to grab hold of another yardarm on the way down, while Altaria is not so lucky, plummeting unabated into the deck, where it lands with a heavy crash and lies unconscious. Delightedly, Ash calls up to his starter, thanking him for clinching him the victory, and upon hearing that he managed to win, Pikachu lets out a happy little squeak, then passes out as well. Ash's smile does not fade as he climbs up the rigging to retrieve his partner, and when Pikachu stirs in his trainer's arms, Ash tells him to take a good long rest, and to leave everything to him and their final friend. Down below, Drake commends Ash on overcoming his Altaria, before commenting that he's glad he didn't win 2-0, since he's quite curious to see what the mystery Pokemon Ash had sent over is. Beaming proudly, Ash promises that Drake won't be disappointed. Then as the Dragon Specialist brings out his Salamence, Ash calls forth his final Pokemon, Charizard. With a pair of mighty roars, Charizard and Salamence each take to the sky, then on their trainer's command, open the clash with matching flamethrowers. The heat of these colliding spurts of fire is incredible, though unluckily for Charizard, its fire typing does not give it the edge it needs to overcome Salamence, with the orange dragon soon being bathed in flames as Salamence closes in for a Dragon Claw which it buries in the starter's stomach. This makes Charizard roar in pain, though keeping his cool, Ash tells his old friend to use Overheat. At such close range, the ensuing orb of orange energy cannot miss, and as it explodes into powerful flames, Salamence recoils, leaving itself open to a lariat when Charizard brings its tail up to strike the dragon's long serpentine neck. This follow-up blow sends Salamence flying back, and wanting to capitalize, Charizard begins firing a volley of Dragon Rage as its opponent's retreating form. However, Salamence would not be the ace of Hoenn's strongest Elite Four if this was enough to take it down, and so riding itself in midair, it retaliates with a flamethrower that incinerates the Dragon Rages and hits Charizard as well. Then to make matters worse, Drake has Salamence reveal its trump card, Rock Slide. At once a ring of boulders appear around Salamence, and with a roar, the Dragon Pokemon hurls them at Charizard. Thanks to all the effort Charizard has put into its training at the Charisific Valley, it is able to avoid the first few stones that come its way, but all it takes is one to clip its wing, and suddenly the fire lizard is in trouble, as it is bombarded by super effective rocks. Being quad weak to the attack, Drake and Salamence assume this will be the end for Charizard, though to their surprise, when the fire type emerges from the dust cloud created by the exploding stones, it is with a look of renewed vigor in its eyes as it soars directly at its rival. Whooping excitedly, Ash tells his old friend to use Overheat again, and with a reptilian grin, Charizard obeys, strafing Salamence with fireballs. When it gets close enough, Drake tells his ace to retaliate with Dragon Claw, but this time Charizard is ready for the attack, dodging out of the way at the last second, and getting Salamence in a full Nelson. Then on Ash's command, Charizard starts using its finishing move, Seismic Toss. In the face of such a tight grip, Salamence is unable to escape, and as the G-force of Charizard's aerial circles press it tighter against its foe, the dragon has no choice but to endure the rise as it spun around and around before the fire lizard dives at rapid pace and slams it into the deck with enough force to almost make the ship capsize. Soaring upwards once again, Charizard bellows triumphantly, while down below Ash cheers, calling the fire type the greatest. It is a moment of pure joy. That is until a stone strikes Charizard right in the stomach. Looking down, Ash sees Salamence, somehow still conscious, that same ring of stones from before floating around it, and as it launches them up at Charizard, the boy is unable to do anything but watch in horror, as his friend is decimated by the quad-effective barrage and knocked out cold. However, this is not the worst of it, as this blow sends Charizard's unconscious body hurtling backwards, away from the ship and directly over the open ocean. Knowing what will happen if Charizard is submerged, Ash takes off at a run, leaping overboard and attempting to put his body between Charizard and the water. However, before either boy or beast can break the surface, they are both grabbed by a pair of powerful arms. Looking up, Ash sees it as Salamence, having come to both their rescues, and as it places them back down on deck, Ash thanks the dragon from the bottom of his heart. Making his way over to the boy, Drake comments that Ash is reckless, foolhardy even, but he can't deny that he has spirit, and more than that, he now understands why Moore thinks so highly of him. Beaming, Ash thanks the Elite Four member for battling him, saying that he learned a lot, a claim which pleases the mustachioed man as he encourages Ash to keep up his training, saying that with a bit of hard work, they might meet again in the Champion League. Not long after this, Drake and his crew depart, having business to attend to on a nearby island, while Ash and Brock return to the Pokémon Center so Ash can send Charizard back to Liza. When this is done, Brock asks if Ash intends to call Professor Oak and get Meganium back, since she's the Pokémon he sent to the lab to make space for the fire type. But with a shake of his head, Ash replies that he's gonna let her enjoy her break from Grovyle for a little while longer, figuring that 5 Pokémon are enough for the time being. The next day, while continuing on their way to Sootopolis City, the boys decide to stop for lunch on the supposedly uninhabited Whales Island. After their meal, Ash decides to get a bit more training in before continuing their journey, and so heading deeper into the lush jungle of the island, he soon comes across a mansion of sorts. Here he meets Professor Proctor and his wife Annie, who are using the mansion as the base of their fossil revival operation. After retrieving Brock, and comforting him when he learns that Annie is married, the two boys are shown around the research facility, even witnessing as an Anorith evolves into an Armaldo before their very eyes. Unfortunately, Ash and Brock are not the only guests to see this, as unbeknownst to everyone, Team Rocket have been spying on the heroes from out of sight. In their usual greedy manner, they fantasize about the reward they would receive from Giovanni for bringing a real-life prehistoric Pokemon, and when Armaldo evolves, they take it as a sign from the universe. Springing into action, the trio of crooks storm the mansion and attempt to capture Armaldo in a net, though the bug rock type makes quick work of the thieves with its immense power. However, this is not the end of Armaldo's rampage, as the trauma of being attacked at the moment of evolution sends it into a frenzy, with it smashing the nearby lab equipment and attacking Ash, Brock, and the Proctors before fleeing into the jungle. Giving chase, the heroes find the fossil Pokemon attempting to eat the fruit of a nearby tree, though when it spots them, Armaldo once more goes on the attack. Wanting to avoid senseless carnage, Pikachu attempts to reason with it, though sadly this falls on deaf ears, and with that Max to suggest that a bug type might have an easier time reaching Armaldo, Ash defaults to his old standby upon seeing Pikachu injured. Battle. Having learned from the Proctors what type Armaldo is, Ash chooses Skarmory to help out, a wise decision as not only does it have the advantage thanks to being part steel, but as an aggressive creature by nature, it is able to recognize that Armaldo is not the same, merely being scared and confused. As a result, Skarmory pulls its punches a bit, striking Armaldo with a middling strength Steel Wing, carrying just enough force to startle the bug rock type out of its fugue state so it will listen. The steely predator then orders Armaldo to stop, though in its usual prideful way, this is phrased in terms of its own superiority over the bug, and how if Armaldo continues to fight, it will only get itself hurt. However, it seems that threats are not the best way to get through to the prehistoric Pokemon, as when it recognizes that it's outclassed, it uses Dig to flee once more. Thankfully, Professor Proctor has an idea of where it is going, and so leads the group to a lone tree on the very tip of the island, which is the last place the fruit Armaldo used to like millions of years ago still grows. In this, Proctor is correct, as when they all arrive, they witness Armaldo burrowing its way to the surface and making a beeline for the tree. Unfortunately, Team Rocket once again messes things up, arriving with an armored mech this time, and grabbing hold of Armaldo with declarations of how rich they soon shall be. That is until Skarmory cuts them down to size, rather literally, as with a full force Steel Wing, the Armor Bird slices the mech in two, leaving the villains exposed to a Thunderbolt from Pikachu that sends them blasting off before they can cause too much trouble. Though this disruption is brief, it has a marked impact on Armaldo, who recognizes at last that these humans and Pokemon went out of their way to save it, and so are not its enemies. As a result, after finally filling its belly with ancient fruit and calming down, Armaldo approaches the group and begins chatting amiably with the Pokemon. In particular, it has a healthy respect for Skarmory, both due to its power, but also the evident kindness hidden beneath its harsh, steely exterior. Skarmory, for its part, recognizes that while Armaldo does not share its disposition, they are still alike, both being hot-headed creatures, with Armaldo likely benefiting from a partner like Skarmory has with Ash. To this end, when Ash and Brock board a boat and prepare to leave, they are shocked to see Armaldo running towards them, hollering and even diving into the sea to swim after them. Getting the gist, the boys throw out a rope for it, and when it is safely on board, Ash happily accepts it onto his team. For the remainder of their island-hopping adventure, Armaldo joins the rest of the team in training as well as their various encounters with Team Rocket and other minor threats. During this time, it becomes especially close with Skarmory, who has become a mentor figure of sorts, and Brock, since while the fossil Pokemon is a remarkably picky eater, the aspiring breeder is able to use what he learned in his Pokeblock class to whip up food that more closely resembles the flavors of its prehistoric favorites. Finally, after a few more adventures, Ash and Brock arrive in Sootopolis City, the site of Ash's 7th gym battle, following some shenanigans with Team Rocket, in which they attempt to steal a water performer's Pokemon, only to be sent blasting off when they learn the performer is the gym leader Juan. Ash and Brock are brought to the Sootopolis Gym, where Juan explains that his battle is a little out of the ordinary, as it will be a 5v5, though the first round of it will be in the form of a double battle on a water battlefield. Nodding his understanding, Ash requests a moment to call home and swap out some of his team, a request Juan is happy to grant, so that a few minutes later when Ash takes to the field, it is with a confident grin as he reveals his opening pair to be Pikachu and Whiscash. One compliments this pairing, calling it very clever since it will allow Pikachu to use its highly effective electric moves without fear of injuring its partner. Grinning, Ash says that isn't the only benefit, as with Whiscash's immense size and impressive swim speed, it is able to carry Pikachu anywhere he needs to go, meaning the water field will not limit the electric rodent in any way. With a smile, one promises to put this idea to the test as he unveils his opening pair, Celio, who basks on a floating platform, and Seeking, who floats in the pool. Predictably, Ash decides to open with Thunderbolt, though when Seeking takes the hit, it is able to employ Horn Drill to neutralize the damage. This baffles the young challenger, as in his experience, aiming for the horn always works, but with a faint chuckle, one explains that not only can Seeking use its horn as a lightning rod to catch electric moves, but it can also redirect them. To prove his point, the Sootopolis Gym Leader has Seeking fire the Thunderbolt back at Pikachu, but with a cry, Whiscash comes to the rescue, leaping out of the water so the electric attack strikes his underbelly, shielding its partner. The Whiskers Pokemon then lands with a powerful belly flop, sending ripples through the pool and causing both of Juan's Pokemons to wince at the effect of this earthquake attack. Now it is Celio's time to shine, with it using Blizzard, a move that affects both Whiscash and Pikachu. Knowing that they'll freeze if they stay in one place, Whiscash hurtles towards its opponents, a shocking choice one had not expected. Though what is far more shocking is Pikachu's follow-up move, as he uses Whiscash's momentum to execute an extra speedy quick attack. However, instead of attacking either of one's Pokemon, the little electric type targets the platform Celio is lying on, striking the rim and causing it to flip and capsize, sending Celio into the drink. This has two benefits. The first and most obvious one being that Celio's blizzard has been interrupted by its sudden fall into the water, though the second and far more valuable is that with Juan's duo now being in the water, Pikachu can employ a thunder attack which Seeking cannot deflect. At once, Celio and Seeking begin to writhe in pain, though one seems untroubled, telling Ash that in his experience as a coordinator, the most dazzling performance is one where victory is grasped from the jaws of defeat, just as he is about to do, by having Seeking use Horn Drill. Unlike last time, this attack is not intended defensively, but rather to mirror how Pikachu halted Blizzard, since by striking the mouse with its horn, Seeking hopes to bring an end to its electric assault. However, this fails to take into account Whiscash, with the unaffected water ground type coming in clutch, as it fires off a water pulse, which strikes the goldfish Pokemon in the face, dazing it and protecting Pikachu just long enough for his thunder to take out both Seeking and Celio. And just like that, the first round is over, with Ash having all 5 of his Pokemon, while one only has 3 left. With the change in format, now comes a new battlefield, one that resembles a lake, a fact which pleases Ash, since this comes with far more land for his Pokemon to move around on. Wanting to make use of this, he next chooses Grovyle, who is eager to get some redemption after its summary defeat at the hands of Drake's Shogun. Meanwhile, Juan's third Pokemon is none other than Lovedisk, with the little heartfish exuding anything but an aura of love, as it glowers fiercely at Grovyle. Nonetheless, Grovyle opens the match with a barrage of bullet seeds, though showing off its impressive speed, Lovedisk dodges these and closes the distance between them before firing off an attract. At such close range, Grovyle is helpless to resist, with its eyes becoming hearts as it capers around in an amorous haze. Capitalizing on this, one has Lovedisk strike Grovyle with repeated water guns, though in its infatuated state, Grovyle doesn't seem to mind the abuse, instead getting down on one knee and seemingly trying to serenade the water type with a love song. Urgently, Ash tries to get Grovyle to snap out of it, but it truly seems hopeless, as Lovedisk just keeps battering the grass gecko and bringing it closer and closer to fainting. That is until Brock strikes upon an idea. Being something of an expert in the field of infatuation, he calls out to Grovyle, reminding it of its one true love, Meganium. Imagine how hurt she'd be if she saw Grovyle fawning over someone else. Truthfully, Ash thinks she'd be relieved more than anything, though he keeps this opinion to himself, as somehow Brock's idea seems to be working, and so he and Pikachu join in. Together the trio are able to snap Grovyle out of its infatuation, and as it looks at Lovedisk now, fury burns in its eyes. How dare this fish make it be disloyal to its beloved Meganium? Grovyle decides to vent this anger the best way it knows how, with a flurry of attacks. Starting with a quick attack, the grass-type shoulder charges Lovedisk, a surprise to it and Juan, though not one they cannot counter, as with Flourish, the gym leader tells his Pokemon to use its speed to flee. Unfortunately for the fish, Grovyle's fury allows it to keep pace, as by launching itself with its powerful legs, the grass gecko flies above Lovedisk, before colliding with a brief flash of green light. Being in the center of the lake, a vast column of water erupts around the pair as Lovedisk goes flying into the sky, though as it fades, Ash sees that the leaves on Grovyle's arms have become glowing scythes. Excitedly, Brock claims that this must be Leaf Blade, and feeling his own excitement grow, Ash tells his grassy friend to use this move to end things. Nodding emphatically, Grovyle kicks off once again, this time flying directly upwards, and as Lovedisk starts coming down, it is caught by a pair of diagonal slashes that put it down for the count. By now Ash is getting a little overconfident, with one being down to just 2 Pokemon while he has his full team, and unfortunately, this costs him as when the gym leader brings out his penultimate Pokemon Whiscash, Ash keeps Grovyle in despite the damages already taken. Subsequently, when one of the Whisker's Pokemon use Hyper Beam, Grovyle is too tired to avoid it, resulting in it being slammed against the back wall by the blast and knocked out. Learning from this mistake, Ash decides to bring out a fresh Pokemon now, that being Tauros, who snorts and pounds its hooves at the sight of its opponent. Adopting a surprised expression, one admits that he doesn't believe he's ever had a challenger use a Tauros against him, but he's not one to turn down new experiences, so he gladly gives Ash the first move to see what he and his Raging Bull can do. Not wanting to squander the opportunity, Ash starts strong, having Tauros use Fissure in the hope of a one-hit KO. Unfortunately, One and Whiscash are far too skilled a pair to fall for such an obvious tactic, with the fish leaping out of the water and belly flopping onto Tauros. As it does so, a yellow aura surrounds Whiscash, which one explains is Rock Smash, a super effective move, and at once Ash can tell the gym leader isn't lying, as Tauros certainly looks worse for wear after that hit. Nonetheless, the Wild Bull Pokemon isn't about to give up here, and neither is Ash, with the boy commanding his Pokemon to use Takedown. Snorting fiercely, Tauros slams into its opponent, and as Whiscash is knocked back into the lake, Tauros gives chase, using Surf to slam into it again. The sight of an aquatic Tauros captivates one, with him declaring it truly marvelous, to the point where he almost feels guilty about defeating it, though he's afraid he has to, with him ordering another Hyper Beam. Thinking fast, Ash's Tauros used Takedown again, and marshalling its strength, the gutsy normal type charges headlong into the stream of energy, determined to hit its target. After the thrashing Tauros gave Whiscash, Ash and One both wonder if this Takedown will spell the end of the Water Ground type, though unfortunately, even the most stubborn of Pokemon cannot withstand a constant barrage of pure energy, and so shortly before making contact with Whiscash, Tauros falls forward and is swept away by the Hyper Beam, bringing Ash down to 3 team members left. Figuring that it's rested long enough, Ash chooses to bring back his own Whiscash, and it is only now that he comes to appreciate how much larger than average his one is, as it towers over one's regular-sized fish. Likewise, when it hits with a double edge, the gym leader's Pokemon is sent soaring out of the lake, and when it crashes to the ground, it is with spirals for eyes. Now at last it is time for One's final Pokemon, and none can deny that he saved the best for last, as he calls forth his undisputed ace, a beautiful Milotic. Swishing its tail back and forth, the Sea Serpent exudes grace and power in equal measure, and not wanting to make a mistake, Ash has Whiscash hang back and fire water pulses, hoping one might be enough to confuse Milotic. Unfortunately, Milotic's speed far outstrips Whiscash, with a pure water type using its tail to bat the spheres of water away, rendering them inert and forcing Ash to reconsider. Still wanting to get a gauge on Milotic's power, he next tries Earthquake, since both Pokemon are in the water. This does at least cause Milotic discomfort, a fact which bolsters Ash's confidence, though with a titter, one declares that Ash and Whiscash are not the only ones who can disturb the water, having Milotic prove this point with a twister. At once, a mighty water spout appears beneath Whiscash, sucking the water ground type up and sending it spinning higher and higher into the air. Frantically, Ash tells his friend to break free, but it seems this is a vain hope, as Milotic is firmly in control. That is until the bulky fish decides to go all out, determined to win this match for its trainer by using Double Edge. Bursting through the side of the water spout, Whiscash becomes a torpedo plummeting towards Milotic, with all the speed and force born of its imprisonment in the twister. Worriedly, one tells his old partner to dodge, as the impact from such a big and now speedy Pokemon could be enough to take Milotic out. But alas, it is too late, as with a landing that sends half the lake flooding onto the bank, Whiscash strikes Milotic, submerging them both. When the pair float back to the surface, Whiscash is belly up, the recoil damage stocked on top of the twister being too much to handle, though Milotic is in a similarly grim state, just barely hanging on to consciousness after the colossal collision. Smiling proudly, Ash thanks Whiscash for putting in such an amazing effort and tells it to get a good rest, before asking if Pikachu's ready to get back in there and end this match. Crying his name emphatically, the electric rodent responds by leaping onto the sodden battlefield, and with this decided, the battle resumes. Hoping to end things before Milotic can use any more of its incredible power, Ash has Pikachu use Thunder, though to their horror, one has a counter, having Milotic use Iron Tail to draw in the attack like a lightning rod, before firing it right back at them. Desperately, Pikachu tries to get away, but his lightning speed is significantly hampered by the muddy ground, with his feet being caught in the quagmire, thus making him vulnerable to the attack. However, this is not the end, as using its own unencumbered speed, Milotic dashes over to the water's edge and uses its fan-like tail to strike Pikachu across the face like a mace, and finally dislodge him from the mud. Squealing in pain, Pikachu goes hurtling backwards, and as he lands hard against the muddy ground, Ash urges him to get back up. Thanks to their strong bond, the little electric type does manage to get back up, though it is plain to see that he is on his last legs. Wishing once again that he had more type diversity in his moves, Ash has Pikachu use Quick Attack, a move that fails to reach its full power thanks to the slick ground, but still does decent damage, causing Milotic to sway woozily. Silently, Ash and Pikachu hope that this will be enough to win the day, though just before Milotic can fall, one calls for a cover. At once the Sea Serpent glows brightly, as all signs of damage and fatigue fade away, leaving it good as new. Then, as the challengers stare on horror, the gym leader has his Pokemon use Hydro Pump, which catches Pikachu and sends him sailing into the challengers platform, where he lies unconscious. Wrapping his buddy in a hug and helping him dry off, Ash tells Pikachu to rest up, since his efforts will play a big part in their victory. Smiling, one asks with curiosity who the boy has as his final Pokemon that would instill such confidence in them winning, as Milotic has proved quite difficult for Ash's team so far. Despite having lost his significant lead, Ash does not seem troubled, as with a smile of his own, he reveals his last Pokemon to be Kingler. With a jolly cry, Kingler scuttles across the field, having no trouble traversing the muddy ground or the water, thanks to having grown up on the beaches of Kanto. Eyeing it appraisingly, one smiles that Kingler certainly is a happy chap, though he wonders how effective a battler it is. Wanting to put this to the test, one takes the first move, calling for Hydro Pump, though Kingler matches this with a Hyper Beam, which evaporates the water and strikes Milotic with impressive force. After such an attack, Kingler needs a moment to recharge, allowing one to have Milotic strike back with Iron Tail, and though this does do damage, it is not a definitive blow, allowing Kingler to retaliate by clamping its pincer down on the tail with Vice Grip and hurl Milotic out of the water. This greatly agitates the Sea Serpent, as it is slammed back and forth with a volley of crab hammers before being thrown into the air. Ash then tries to end things with another Hyper Beam, though even in the air Milotic is graceful, circling around the blast to avoid being hit, then driving an Iron Tail into Kingler's head while it recharges. Once more Kingler attempts to grab Milotic, though this time the gym leader's ace is wise to this trick, slithering back then firing off another Hydro Pump that soaks the King Crab. Fighting water with water, Kingler uses a Bubble Attack, which while not strong enough to blow back Hydro Pump, does absorb some of the impact, allowing it to scuttle in close and whack Milotic over the head with a surprise Crab Hammer. This begins a back and forth, as the two begin pummeling each other with Iron Tails and Crab Hammers respectively, until their trainers call them back. After such a brutal beating, neither Pokemon appears to be able to go on much longer, and knowing that he doesn't have time for another recover, one orders a final Hydro Pump, while Ash does likewise with Hyper Beam. Rather than meeting in the middle, the two blasts run parallel to each other, striking their intended targets head on, and as both are flung back into the walls, it is anyone's guess who will win. For a moment, it seems the match has ended in double knockout, resulting in a tie, but then with a weak bubbling gurgle, Kingler raises one pincer, signifying that it is still conscious, and in doing so, wins Ash the match. After returning their Pokemon, Ash and One meet in the middle to shake hands, with the Sootopolis Gym leader praising Ash on how well he's raised his Pokemon, before bestowing him with a rain badge. Ash gratefully accepts this, calling One a really great trainer, then with smiles on all faces, they part ways. Back at the Pokemon Center, Ash and Brock contemplate where they should go next, since until Mr. Moore returns to his gym, they're kind of stuck in a holding pattern. However, this is not an issue for long, as when the boys head up to the counter to retrieve their Pokemon, they're informed by Nurse Joy that the interim Lavridge gym leader has been calling all the Pokemon centers in an attempt to find them. Sharing a look that says they know what this means, Ash and Brock immediately head to the phone bank and call Flannery. As expected, she is the news that Ash has been waiting to hear. Her grandpa is home, which means it's time for Ash's final Hoenn gym battle. And that's where we'll leave things. What strategy has Ash cooked up for his rematch with Mr. Moore? Can our young hero put to use everything he's learned to finally beat a former Elite Four member? And does he have time to get all the way to Lavridge Town and back before the Pokemon League? Find out as the journey continues.